Okay, so it says that we are live, Miss Joanne. Miss
We are
Joanne, Miss Joanne, Miss Joanne is in the house.
live.
Oh man. I gotta tell you how special this lady is to me. But before I do, I always gotta go on the Facebook and then make it public so that everybody can see this, because otherwise they won't. I don't know why that is, but I keep saying to myself, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna figure out why it's just not, because it doesn't do that for YouTube, right? YouTube, it streams right away. I don't have to touch nothing. But
Okay.
here, no, no.
Well, I'm not tech savvy like that. So
Right. Well, I mean, I would. Shoot. All right. Let's see. Privacy. See, it's right now. Only me can see it, which is dumb. All right, now everybody can see it. Okay. So if you ever want to go back and share it, you can. But I definitely, I'll tag you after I'm done here. Um, so yeah, y'all. Yeah, when I said I was going to celebrate people in my inner circle, this is what it looks like. And in order for me to have an inner circle, I gotta allow people to I gotta allow people in my life, right? I've got to allow people to actually really get to know me, the real Nettie Long, you know, and AKA now Nettie Long poetry. I have to welcome this woman here and just give her flowers first of all about the work that she did in me, right? Now, by her profession, she is a therapist. When
yes.
I went through the adult trauma that I went through with my family, I was distraught. And CPC was the one who recommended her to be with us as a family.
Mhm.
And so I want to get into that. And the reason why I want to showcase you and give you your flowers, because I was a mess. I did not like myself. I did not like who I was. I did not like where I was. I put a lot of that blame on me. How did I not see it? Do you remember that? Well,
Yes, I
our
do.
sessions were, I just don't know. I was abused. I was an abused victim. I know this. This is a part that I know, and I did as much as I could. That I thought that I knew what I needed to know about molestations, and we didn't do the sleepovers, and we didn't do, like, I was trying to do all the safeguarding, and little do I know I'm married right into pedophilia. I married right into a man who was a molester, and
Mhm.
um and I kept saying to you, I don't know how it happened, right?
Right.
And then you put the G word, and you said, because he groomed you. Didn't even know
Mhm.
what that was. What you talking about? Because often what I talk about in my about my story and about my platform, I just want to be as authentic as possible so people can understand that, yeah, you do have these, look, these feelings of feeling like everything is the whole, like, when you cannot control what happens to your kids, it's your fault. You feel automatically responsible. But what
Yes.
I did not know was that I was only as wise as my circumstances. Like, anything outside of that I didn't know. So I didn't know anything about the grooming process and what that looks like in in someone pursuing a woman with a single woman with kids. I did not know what that looked like. I thought we were doing everything right, and so I was like, how we were serving in our ministries, like we were in church, like how in the world was I not, why was I not, why was I blindsided? And you gave me the education of my life, and it was almost like I didn't know how to
Mhm.
accept what you were saying until you started to break it down
Mhm.
to me, and you were very patient with me, very patient with me. I I wanted to have you on so that you can also talk about how important therapy is. Um,
Yes.
but I really just wanted to be I'm putting my life out there. I'm putting it out there in a way that most people don't do. I know it's kind of unorthodox, but I I don't care. I believe in therapy, and I believe it's important for you to have the right therapist. And I also talk about,
Yes.
hey, if it's not the right one for you, get another one, until it
Exactly.
is it is
Exactly.
helping you grow. It is helping you expand your knowledge. You did that for me. Now I feel like
Thank you.
I can literally see it from a distance. I can literally look at somebody's life and say, something don't look right there, because yeah, of course you're gonna have your experiences. And what I was trying to say before
Yes.
was I was molested, and then I was molested again, later on in life, and the two factors remain is that I never got rehabilitated. So maybe in my
Right.
rehabilitation portion of it, if I would have gotten rehabilitated, maybe I would have gotten the knowledge that I needed to know and discern, and know what strange behavior looks like and feels like, because a child will a child will know that it feels strange but don't know how to articulate it, which is what happened. So again,
Yes. Yes.
only only with my experiences, so I didn't know what to look for, what grooming looked like, what the trickery of grooming, and I really want to kind of get into that, just so that people have an understanding, just in my situation, what that was like for me. um
Yes.
can Do you remember, how broken I was?
I actually do. Um, it was because of your children experiencing what they experienced. It took you back to your earlier sex. So it took you to a place that you thought you had overcome
Yes.
until it was back in your face again.
Mm, mm,
And I came into your lives when it was fresh.
mhm.
It had just well, not just happening, but it was happening. And again, you thought that you had did everything you could possibly do to
Yes.
protect your children. But when it happened to your children who you have protected very well, it took you back to a place where you blamed yourself. Like, how did I allow this to happen when I know what it feels like? I know what it looks like. Like, how did it come around the corner and me not see it?
Mhm. Mhm.
Especially when it was birthed in the church.
Mm, mm, mm,
And so you couldn't see past anything else. I let this happen to my babies. So
mhm.
you were punishing yourself for what had happened when it really was not your fault at all.
And you kept saying that to me, but I just didn't believe it. I said, "How can you say
Mhm.
that?" It's like, how I couldn't believe, how can you say that? I had this experience. And so it was very hard to get out of that, out of that cycle of, believing that this was beyond my control, right?
Yeah.
This was People are very calculating. That was another word that you put at me. He was calculating. And another thing that stuck out was that you said that he fit right into the community, that he was the kids' soccer coach. And so now we're touching the lives of hundreds of kids, because now this is
Yes.
over a course of 4 years of, you know what I mean? How embarrassed I was. I held a high position in the club. I was part of the membership in the club, soccer club,
Mhm.
and so I thought I had to resign, because this was this is what happened, and they were so supportive, and they kept it very private. It's now only, over the course of years that people found out. It's only just because they follow me here on Facebook. um but I'm not afraid to tell it anymore. You know,
Yes.
I feel that, my God, if this happens to me, who else is it affecting? And so I'm just trying to be the instrument. But be that's not even so much it's just that we go through things and we don't want to waste it. Let's help somebody else, you know.
Exactly.
And I feel like therapists have their own share of traumas and things like that, which is why they become, you know, therapists, because they want to help somebody, because they have, you know, a you know, a step up of being able to, you know, decipher personalities and things like that. So we're not gonna. I'm definitely not gonna put you on the spot for any of that. But I again just wanting to thank you for saving me,
Mm,
saving my family,
mm.
making me feel that I am important. And as busy as you were coming 3 days a week. Do you remember that?
I
You
didn't
don't
remember how
believe
many
me.
days.
It was 3 days a week, and you know, and
Wow.
so the stronger that we got over a course of, you know, the after the year, you know, and stronger that we got, then of course those lessons. But I was seeking therapy for at least 3 times a week when it first, you know, first hit. And then like, you know, the support that you offer me even as a mother. It's so important to
Mhm.
have therapists on board, like when it's a family trauma,
Yes, yes,
that you're getting the support, because she had to step up into this, you know, situation. But she, because she already has, let me tell you her background. She, when she first started therapy, she was the therapist of the pedophiles. Is that right? Do I understand that correctly?
when I was,
When
yes,
you, like, when you
yes,
first started,
yes,
you were the
yes,
therapist of the of pedophile of the
correct. That's how I got into the
pedophiles,
field. That's how I
right?
got into the
That's how
field.
you got into the field. So you
Yes,
already had a step up in information that I was never privy to, so that I
yes.
was able to get educated. So they told me that your title was a trauma focused therapist. Can you
Okay.
tell
Yes.
our viewers exactly what that is, and why is it different from, you know,
Regular
a
thing.
basic therapist?
Yes. Trauma focus is called trauma focused CPT, is specific to the trauma a person had experienced. Whereas when you're going through regular therapy, or that's not trauma based, you're
Mm-hmm.
looking at many different factors. But there are certain steps with trauma focus that is related to the trauma, and it's done in a sensitive manner that you're not re-traumatized um,
Right.
in therapy, which could easily happen. Um,
Yes.
just last week, I had a request for a young lady that I was working with. She relocated and we could no longer work together. And I was reached out to by this person, said, could you please still meet with her? Because in her even trying to tell me what
Mm-hmm.
had happened to her, she was going to a bad place,
Mm-hmm.
because she has told this story to everybody that had came into her life. And people, professionals, sometimes don't realize that life does happen and we have to move on or change. But every time that survivor has to tell their story to somebody else, it pulls on them, especially as a young person. So it's important to know the stages that a person will go through in processing that trauma, and being sure, even before you get to the core of it, that
Mm-hmm.
you have helped them to develop the skills to process and navigate through. I just can't go in and say, okay, what happened to you? No, 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 because then they're opening themselves up
Mm-hmm.
without the skills, techniques, or strategies to navigate through life. Well, what do I do with this when it comes back up? What do I do with the night terrors? What do I do with the flashbacks? What do
Mm-hmm.
I do with all the things that remind me? And I don't think some people realize it can be a scent. If you were sexually assaulted when someone was cooking spaghetti, smelling spaghetti sauce cooking takes you back there. So helping the individual to realize through the process of their healing that
Mm.
there are certain skills and techniques and supports that they can tap into to
Mhm.
help them through the process.
Mhm.
So it can't be someone that I went to school or just graduated yesterday and now I'm going to help you. There's a knowledge, a skill base that needs to also happen, I feel, working with this sensitive population, because a therapist that is not trained could easily help that person or provoke them to be re-traumatized.
Mm. I can't say there was ever a time I felt I was being like re-traumatized at all. You did it very skillfully. If I had to reach back into my childhood, you were very careful in the way that you worded things. So I felt like you did a very good job of keeping me steadfast on my mental health. You were. I felt that you actually genuinely cared. You know what I mean? You
Mhm.
know, I've had my kids have had other therapists, you know, in different stages of their life, and they didn't feel like what's the point in talking to these therapists when they're not really engaging and they're not really helping me, connect the dots, or I feel like a therapist has to have a sense of knowing how to steer someone in the right direction in so that so the person can discover how to reach, goals and things like that in their life. If you're not doing that or not helping them, you're keeping them stuck. And so I felt like you really did a great job with my mental health and steering me back where I needed to go back to. So if I was negative, one day, I had a positive outlook towards it at the end of our sessions. I didn't ever feel like you left me on a cliffhanger. You understand what I'm saying to you when I
Yes,
say
yes,
that? And
yes.
so I can't stress enough, and I hope people see this, and really understand that therapy will save your life, especially with the right therapist, with the right kinds of therapy that there is out there. Some people, like Tiara, for instance, she did really good with wanting to color as she, as she wanted to speak, or to help her speak, to be able to kind of open up. And I know my girls gave you some hard times. But you expected that. You
Yes.
expected that. You were not surprised by that. And so I can remember, some of the challenging times that you had with them, but when you felt like, okay, it's now time to kind of like, I'm gonna have to like, you 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 made the decision, or were making it very clear that if they're not going to participate, I'm not as good as I can't be. I'm not as good as they're what I'm able to offer to them. I'm not as good, to them, if they don't try to cope. And I know for children it's very hard for them uh to exercise, because you're exercising coping skills and things like that. And
Mhm,
so, but
mhm.
they were at an age that they were very capable of being able to do it if they did the work. And so you were very good at, like, hey, I don't have to be here. I don't have to be here. And so, we worked together, and I felt like you were my support. And some things we were able to get through, and some things we weren't able to, you know, um, finish the finish the work that you wanted to do in with the girls. But I can tell you that they often reflect as adults how good you were with them, how they felt like, yeah, she
Mhm.
was the best therapist we ever had.
Oh,
Hands
thank
down.
you.
I know we gave her a run for her money, but um, but, but you're looking at kids that were broken, and so you knew when to cut it off. You knew when it was time for me to be able to be out on my own. That you felt like, that you got this. Like, you did everything in transitions, and so I didn't feel rushed. I didn't want you to go, but when it was time, but I felt so much better about myself, and that's how I got introduced with poetry. And all you kept asking me to do was write a letter. Just write a letter. Just write anything. Write something. And I kind of fought you tooth and nail because at the time I was just barely existing. And I'll tell this to folks that listen that I was barely mustering up sentences. If work wasn't so scripted, I wouldn't even know how I made it through work. I went that whole year I was late coming into the doors of the church because I used to work for the church. And
I
so
remember.
it really, your life really depends on your lifeline or where you go to church, right?
Yes.
Even though church was my employer at the time, they understood where I was going, what I was going through, and they supported me. Never
Mhm.
once was I ever pulled like, "Yo, girl, you need to get it together. You're a half hour late. You an hour late. You did."
I
Like
remember even coming to your job to do it. You said, I can't because I got so much going on. Well, I'll come to your job and we're going to do therapy there.
you did. You are so flexible. Like I don't know. Do you care about me?
Yes.
You have to. You have to because, and then even long after the therapy, we started seeing each other in the same circles. I sang
Yes.
at a wedding that you were
Yes.
at. You're like, I can't believe this. Like,
Yes.
and then
Yes.
it was just so natural when I started to do the podcast that your name kept coming up. I was like, let me see if she'll take me. I'm no longer a client, but let me see if she'll accept my friend request. And then you did, and then oh my god, this is so great. And then you've been on as a panelist. Like, this is just a dream come true, and that's all I can tell you. Like, I hope that when you look at me, you're like, man, that's some progress there. Like,
It
and you
is.
should be proud of yourself. Now, I'm not saying I've arrived or anything, but I am so much better than I was when you first
Yes,
met me.
you are.
Woo!
Yes.
And I
Yes.
just thank
Yes.
God for that. I thank God for the circle that he has given me, the people that are in my immediate circle. I consider you someone in my immediate circle because you were who I needed. We often don't realize that our thoughts pick away at us, so much so that we will spend hours trying to come to reason with things in our thoughts, that we need help with that.
Yes. Yes. And the
We
only
absolutely,
person you're
yes,
talking to is yourself.
we are our worst
Yes.
demise.
Yes.
And so if I'm not careful, I'll revisit that a lot.
Mm,
I will revisit that. And that's such a bad trait
mm.
to operate in, because if you get stuck, okay. So I'm gonna share this. So, because I had daddy issues. I had
Mhm.
daddy issues, and I had molestation issues. I had I lost a sense of identity. Like, we had to peel back the onion way back from
The layers.
oh my God, of so many things that I didn't even correlate from my childhood. That's why I always talk about what's in your childhood. You got to address that little girl in you, or you got to
Yes.
address that little boy in you first. Because
Yes.
how could I have? I was loving my kids on fumes. I was loving my
Mhm.
kids not in a way, only within in the. Oh my God, I'm so excited about this conversation. Sorry that I was only loving them through the lens of how I was taught to love. And it really wasn't love. I realized that I was toxic. I realized, after talking to you, you know what I mean? Like, that these kids have feelings too. Like, no, wait a minute now. Wait a minute now. There's a couple times you had to, like, sit my coattail down and tell me exactly what I'm doing wrong. And I had to accept that. And the reason why, at that point in my life, I trusted you. You
Mhm.
got to get you somebody that you could trust. And
Yes.
I feel like, yes, therapy is absolutely number one on the list, but it's also good to have a mentor.
Yes.
So I had that. I had the support of my church, the support of people in the church, a therapist. CPC was behind me. Like, it's usually when people are involved with CPC that they're like, that's not a good thing. No, it wasn't. But um, what got me there? No, it wasn't. But they were a great support to me and my family.
Yes.
So I would never knock them for not ever. They tried with us, and they helped us, and they did. My boys needed us another, even though the abuse wasn't sexual with them. They did endure, mental abuse,
Yes.
physical abuse. And um maybe the way that he disciplined was unorthodox. I'm like, "No," and I was often told, you don't know how to raise boys, all you know how to do is raise girls. And so that was a struggle that I had, with him. So the boys had to get a certain other level of therapy. um and I'm glad that CPC was there for them for that. um I can tell you that I am 10 times the mother I ever was when I first started.
Mm,
And I owe that to my immediate circle, people that I the people that helped inspire who I am today. And I just wanted to showcase um, everyone this month of who inspired me to be who I am today. And so, Joanne, this is you. You did this for me, and because of you, I'm thankful that I know how to cope. I know how to self-regulate. We don't talk about that enough. How
right,
people
right.
don't know how to self-regulate, and we as adults, and we expect our children to learn how to self-regulate. And I realized the way I was talking to them, the way I was demeaning them, the way that I lacked, how I lacked caring for them, made me realize, like, wow, I'm really ugly on the inside because I got a lot of ugly things that are pulling on me that I just didn't address. And
Yeah.
so I, you helped me see that.
But you know what? You were willing to do
Mm.
the work. You have
Woo!
to be willing to do the work. Not that the work will be easy, it will not. And you have to be willing to be vulnerable.
Mm.
You're going to have to talk about some sensitive issues
Yeah.
that you may have never ever told anyone before
Yes.
and process what that felt like.
Yes.
Like for you, you had to go back and reach to that little girl. And I often still tell my adult clients who are survivors
Hmm.
of child sexual abuse to reach back to that little girl. And if you could write a letter to her, what would you say?
Mm.
So you are a prime example of reaching out, talking, and the more you wrote, the more delivered and the more freedom and liberty that you receive because you were willing to do the work.
Miss Joanne, my first letter that I wrote was a poetry piece. It was called Author of Love. And I was really particularly, I liked the way that it was flowing and all of that. And then that would be the very piece, and I talk about this a lot. That would be the very piece that I did for a women's conference.
Mm,
And I'll never ever forget it, that was the first piece, that first letter I wrote, and how it came out poetically. And
mm,
then that in that moment, because even all the way up into the moment of me delivering this message, I did not know it was going to come out poetically.
mhm, mhm, mhm.
But it did. And when it did, it shocked me. And then it was a lady who says, "Okay, poet," who came to me afterwards to tell me, "Yo, like, how did you put that together?" I'm like, my therapist told me to do it. It's my first letter that came out to the author of love, and that piece talks about how we as we as people, we mess up what love is. We
Mm,
think that all this toxic love is love, all this crazy love is love, and it's not. And people who have children, they think it's love. No, the author of love is love, and he supersedes what what we think of love is. And and that's really what I would compare, what God's love is compared to what I thought God's love was. And so, man, it's a piece that I love it. I love that piece. It's my staple. It's the first of many, because man, after that, it felt like it was running out of me and oozing out of me effortlessly. There was so
Mm.
much that I went back. I went
Okay.
back just to touch on what the feelings were. I'm an emotional writer. I write about feelings. So a lot of
Okay.
my pieces will articulate what a feeling is. And that's why I get a lot of people who talk and touch, and when we're talking about the pieces that I perform, it is based on, you touched on my feelings. You touched on a
Mhm.
very feeling I never even thought.
Mhm.
And when I was telling you that, it's the sexual abuse started when I was 3, with a cousin, a female cousin. And so even talking to you about that made me realize so many things that I was able to connect. And that's what I mean by, you help guide a person to be able to connect,
Yes.
all the different dots that they might not that I may not have will ever consider, would ever have touched, would ever had, be able to articulate, had you not allow me to go back to address certain things, realize that it was possible that my cousin still has a problem, with some
Mhm.
of the posts. Remember, I was telling you some of the posts that she was posting,
Mhm.
and all the way to the point where I was able to address her. So, even that in itself is, a testament of my growth, because I was ugh, I was in my late 30s, um when I did address it. And so it was through, the helping hand of your wisdom. And so, how long, tell the viewers how long have you been a therapist?
I've been a therapist over 20 years now, believe it or not.
Wow.
I have been. And I enjoy what I do.
Hmm.
So
Me
I
too.
really don't consider it work. When I talk to other people, I have to identify what I do as work. But it is ministry for me. I
Hmm.
do want to help people get set free by whatever means possible.
Hmm.
And yes, especially when working with adolescents, you're going to get everything that adolescent brings. But I'm so passionate and understand where they are that I
Hmm.
want to help them. And now I've actually transitioned to where I am doing more adults
Mm.
than I did before. Usually, it used to be primarily children, and
Hmm.
helping them realize, because once you realize and you go back to that little girl or that little boy
Hmm.
and you start putting pieces together, you realize why you've made some of the choices you made, why
Hmm.
you connected in certain relationships and didn't realize why, because there was a piece missing that you didn't know if it was the right piece or an incorrect piece, but it
Hmm.
was something missing that you were searching for. But once you are able to identify who you were really created to be
Hmm.
and speak to not only the young you, but that inner you now,
Hmm.
that you are more than what you experienced, is all is done by then. The
Yeah.
chains are broken.
Mm.
Liberty is yours.
Yes.
So it's
Um.
like I said, you got to do the work. And I also realize with you
Mm.
is, in addition to everything else, you just had a baby. I don't
Ah.
know how long the old the baby is. So you were going through some postpartum stuff in addition to, and had to accept that I have this baby
Hmm.
that I had by this person,
Right.
and not allow it to be a reminder or reflection of him, but of God's love.
Oh my God, that was so good. I don't know how I forgot about that. You're right. He was only 8 months, when everything hit the fan, and he's innocent in all of this because he has no idea um what happened, and still doesn't. The
How
only
old is
person,
he now?
he's 11.
The baby, right?
He's 11, girl. He's 11. But let me tell you what happened. Because he was who I needed. He was so, he also saved my life. If he, if he was old enough, I'd have him on here. Because I owe tribute to him too, because he was the distraction that I needed, right?
Mhm,
Um
mhm.
he was um he was the joy and the love we needed. And I say, if you met him now, you would be able to pick apart, because I know you know my family well enough to know, uh you could pick apart every piece of all of my kids, and there's 7 of them, in this child, because he
Mhm.
watched, he observed our innermost, our sadness, our when we were happy, and so he is very different from all of the kids, because they kind of all grew up in the same age bracket where
Right,
they had each other. He's by himself,
right.
so he was able to, see and dealt with a lot. And this is no secret, my son at the age of 8 had to seek therapy, because
Mhm,
his mind was going into a dark place, wanting to
mhm.
hurt himself and things like that. And so, um I'm grateful that I had enough understanding, hey, my baby needs help. And I was so offended that, I was hurt. I was so hurt. I took offense that, why, I tried to have a good communication. Like, I know how important it is to have a good lines of communication. And it was my mentor, because you're no longer in my ear to help me navigate this, but it was my mentor who said to me, why are you offended? Like, why would you feel like he could talk to you? And I was just like, because I thought we had such a great conversation. I do role play with this kid. Because I know that he's special and he's different. A lot of people bully, a lot of kids have been bullying him. So I wanted to,
Mhm.
get in there and try to help educate him on how to stand up for himself. And so I thought I was hitting all the points, but then here we go again. Do you know what his main reason why for not telling me?
He didn't want to
Because
hurt you.
that's it. Dang, how do you know that? We ain't speak about this in years. Like, how do you know that? Because he didn't want to hurt me. And so we can do absolutely almost everything right. We can learn from our mistakes, which I evolved as a mother, and I feel like, I'm 10 times the mother I ever was when my first child, was born. And so, but look what happened, and kids, because of everything he endured and how he saw us sad, I feel like that played a part
Mhm.
of what he's adopted. They're sponges. Children are sponges. They act and replicate what they see.
Mm.
The chaos that was going on in here, and the how kids become manipulative and try to, act like they're saints, but then, they're sneaking out at night, and doing things, stealing the car while you're sleeping, just doing things that kids normally do to, to kind of like, you know, put their mark, if you want to call it. And so he witnessed all of that. And so,
Mhm.
although he may be very different, I cannot think that when he gets to the age that they were, that, he might morph into uh, Tia, Tony, RJ. And I feel like they're all a part of him in some way. And they'll all tell you he's got all of us in him. All of them, all my kids will tell you he's got all of us in him, all the way down to his smile, his build, the way that the way how RJ was. He didn't, when he was growing up, he was so book smart that he wasn't like logical smart, like not like, just so book smart that he, like, common sense just wasn't his friend. And I had to take him to go to college for him to realize, oh, okay. And now he's totally different. He's a whole man, and he has common sense. Now he's looking at my son, talking to him about, you ain't got no common sense. Wait a minute. You was just like him,
Mhm.
you know? And so, how quickly we forget about where we came from. But I feel like if with him, if I didn't have him as a distraction, Joanne, I probably would have killed myself. I'm not. I mean, that's how dark I was feeling.
Mhm.
The massive pain of this, not being able to help my girls, to know that one of my daughters lost all mobility of her extremities. Who had to go into residential psychiatric ward to, you know what I mean, like you
Yeah.
like people don't I don't think people understand where uh, oh, but he didn't kill you. You know what I mean? No, no, but spiritually I died.
Yeah. And
Emotionally I
sometimes people
died.
think that would have been easier.
The-
Because
right.
you got to live with it, and you got to live with the guilt that you feel, maybe I did something wrong,
Yeah.
the embarrassment that it happened to me, why
That
didn't
was
I
it.
see it, and then the impact that it has on everything around you. So, but you're
Yeah.
a fighter.
No.
You are a fighter.
I am a fighter. I am a fighter, but you gave me the tools I needed to continue that fight. I was scared when you had, when services ended. But I knew, I knew that you knew I was going to be okay. And I trusted
Yes.
that. I trusted that.
You had to know that you could do it yourself.
Yes.
That you how would you ever know that the tools work if
Yes.
you wasn't left to you and your tools to
Yes.
navigate life?
Yes. So the truth is, therapy will show you. And if you're not, like you said, if you're not willing to receive, if you're not willing to do the work, it's not going to work for you. It
Right.
won't ever work for you. I have a coworker who we argue about this all the time. I know he knows therapy, and I really think he knows he needs therapy. He wishes a lot of things were different in his life, but his defense is, he can't, nobody who has a degree can tell me about my experiences in life and things like that. Well, you never know if you never try it. So, but he's somebody who suffers from mental illness as well, and has to have
Mhm.
medication for it. So what does that tell you? I just want to be in a position where I need to, me personally, I need to hear somebody else's story so that I
Yeah.
can understand, maybe my
Yes.
story isn't, maybe my cup isn't so bad, when you hear somebody else's story. And so you
Mm-hmm.
realize, okay, you can gain some perspective of that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've had plenty of people on this platform. They took my choice away survivor series just to like, their story was so horrific. I was like, it puts my story to like, what you
Mm-hmm.
complaining about, sis? And so I think, if I had an example of that growing up, if I had somebody I could talk to who went through something similar, I probably would have not been re-victimized.
Yeah.
I probably would have realized that I can fight through this. Like, I don't have to accept advancements and bad behaviors by adults that made me feel like I had to give them a hug, or I had to show them affection, or I
Right.
had to
Right.
play. I remember playing house with a grown man, and nobody thought it was out of the norm. Like, he was just with all of us and the girls, and I just wondered that if I stayed long enough as friends with them, what would have happened.
Mm.
Just by thinking of that, like, this was a grown man, beard, hair, long hair, and then just hanging out with us and being my husband. I was always the wife. There was always some kids, you know what I mean? And he was always my husband, when we played. But nobody thought that looked weird.
Mm.
We're at a church function, and nobody thinks that's weird. So it
Mm.
just go. I mean, God protected me from that situation. Nothing ever came of it. But when what I know now and all the other things that happened, like I was in the era where pedophilia was pretty heavy, and all I was, like you said, it was all I was at a church. I've been in two churches, sorry, three, my whole life, that it just seemed, except for the last one, where I was just around pedophilia. And I realized that's what it was. It's in someone. It comes out of their pores. It comes out of their actions. It
Well,
comes out of.
you have to realize that the church is the community,
Mm-hmm.
and so as it says, and not to go spiritual, but when
Mm-hmm.
the saints of God comes in, who's creeping with them? The enemy.
Mm-hmm.
He's seeing where there's any weakness or opportunities that he can slip in and defile someone. So it's not so much that it was the church, because the church isn't perfect. The church is full of people that are in a
Mm-hmm.
community, and the enemy will take an opportunity to, like I said, defile anyone if he gets that chance. And he's patient. That's what we fail to realize. He will wait. A pedophile will groom you for years if need be,
Mm-hmm.
especially as a single woman with children. And it's
Yeah.
not just daughters, it's
Mm-hmm.
male or females.
That's right.
Will be very, very patient until that child gets to the age of his preference.
I believe that's what happened. I believe that's what happened. I think there was an age preference, and because I married him when the kids were very young. I think, yeah, my daughter, his son, they were like 7 when we were dating. You know, married him when I was when they had turned 8. So, um, and it wasn't until she was 12, or the girls were 12, was when it started. So, but all that time, the grooming process in my home, was that we did father daughter dates, and I did son and mother dates. And so I don't even like using that term anymore, because what happened was he was discussing things with them about boys, and nothing wrong with if you're educating your kids about it, but the way that he was going about it,
Yeah.
after hindsight, realizing that the conversations that they were having, it would make them uncomfortable with some of the questions that he would ask. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was really to kind of like find out how much they've been exposed to before he even tried to expose whatever
As
his plan
well
was.
as planting the little seeds
That's what he was doing, was
and
planting.
watering it and watering it.
Yes. Because when he initially um molested Tierra, he he made her seem like it didn't happen. So she was struggling with, really, what was that?
Right, right.
It was started with the wrestling, and then he was, caressing areas that he shouldn't have, and so she had hit him like across the face, and he got mad, looked at her, stared at her. That was one thing he did often, was stare at the kids, to kind of like, I don't know, they would just sit still. I mean, and sometimes it would go on for 20 minutes, just the staring and not saying anything. And then
Intimidation.
he broke his stare, looked out the window, and left. That was the first time. And we were on a vacation. So it was the first time that ever happened to her. And she just like didn't know. She kind of just like, what was that about? Maybe it was an accident, so she's tussling with it. And then,
Mm.
when it happened, or try to happen again, it was, oh, let me see down there. I want to make sure you're clean. And she just
Mm.
said she never had a father before, so she just thought, okay, well, what does it hurt for
That
him to
was supposed
see?
to happen.
Right.
Right.
And so it's just like, these are things that were happening behind closed doors that of course I didn't know anything about, but that's how slick things were. That's how
Mhm.
slick he did it, you know? before any of this was an issue, there was one time my daughter and he had a my daughter just got really loud. I don't know what it was. I was getting ready to go to bed, and my daughter So sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I was getting ready and she came upstairs. I heard the commotion. I'm like, what's going on? You know? What's going on? And nothing. And I was like, okay. So I left it. I was about to leave it alone. And she says, none. It's just that, he asking me, if I don't remember all of it, but she asked him a question. He asked her a question related to does something about her, does she get horny? And then she's 17. And so she felt that that was highly inappropriate, and I had to agree with her. So I said, no, we're not talking sex education. He's like, I'm just trying to make sure where her head is. She's already had a baby, the way that, you know what I mean? Because we were having some issues. And that's how he chalked it up to be. I just wanted to
Mm-hmm.
see where her head is because so she doesn't get pregnant again. Like I'm like, yeah, but I feel like that was kind of crossing the line there. So I'll talk to the girls about sex education, and you handle the boys. You let me deal with the girls, and you can deal with the boys in that area. Still not thinking anything of it because she didn't dispute what he said. She just
Right.
stayed quiet about it. And till
Right.
this day, she doesn't remember that ever happened
Mm-hmm.
because it was so like that's how she brushed it off, like you know,
Or
um,
suppressed it.
right. So, but I remember that very vividly. So
Mm-hmm.
to now fast forward 4 years later to have to reach back out and see what the sign was there. I dismissed it, because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know, I've never experienced nothing like that, and so I don't know why I'm bringing that up, but that's the first time I'm sharing that out loud. But I think it's important that if you see something that's inappropriate, I thought to myself, even after all of this happened, right? What would I expected him to do? Because he ended up leaving. Like he ended up in Mexico. And
Mm-hmm.
that's how serious he was afraid of getting caught.
Right.
Because he knew nobody
Mm-hmm.
makes it all the way out to Mexico. And
That's when
he
you
had
were
no.
smart and had that tracker on his phone. I won't forget.
Yes, yes. So he knew he was in a whole world of trouble,
Mm-hmm.
and he knew it. He knew it, and so he was grooming the girls into thinking that the girls, for some reason, felt that I knew, but I just was turning a blind eye because
Yeah.
that's what he was
And then it was
telling
like the
them.
threats that they felt that
Huh?
they couldn't say anything. Their
Yes,
voice was silenced.
yes, and that's yes, yes. Um, that part, and I had to stomach. I remember one of my daughters saying, "You remind me of him." Do you remember that in a group session that she said that to me? Well, one of the kids said that to me, and I was just like, I was like, I don't know how. How could I? How do I remind him of? But that's when my parenting was being in question because I
Mm-hmm.
didn't listen to them. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't give them a safe space. I talk about parent accountability now because how could they have talked to me when all I ever did was yell, scream, get my points
Mm-hmm.
across? I never created a safe space for my kids to come to me and talk to me. And even though I had role play with them, and even though I felt that I was safeguarding them and having all of there would be an episode of a girl getting in the car with somebody familiar, and then they never see them for 20 years later. She's been locked up in a basement. Like, we've talked about all of these things. And I remember one question being raised. I said, listen, one thing I've always taught, my kids, like, if even if it's me, tell on me. That's how
Mhm.
serious it was,
Mhm.
for me. That if
Mhm.
somebody touches them, I need to know about it. And it
Mhm.
was just like, well, what happens if it's, I remember Tony saying to me, what if that is the case? I'm like, oh my God, I don't even want to think about it. And because I said that, like, I said, oh my God, I don't even want to think about it. As if it is, like, if it is, of course, I need to know about it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I remember asking them, like, "Are you guys okay? Is there anything you want to tell me?" No, no, no. We just wanted to know. We just wanted to know. But that was their opportunity to tell me, and so I
They were
played that in my
afraid.
head.
They were afraid.
I played that in my head, like I asked them, you know. And so that was
Mhm.
playing on my mental health. Like, oh my God, it was right there. It was right there.
Mhm.
But I didn't create a safe space. So if you guys are listening out there, your kids are not going to talk to you or trust to talk to you if you don't create a safe space for them to talk. If you're not going to be calm with them, if you're not going to be understanding with them, if your attitude was like mine, and I don't care what you think, I don't care what you say, it's what I say goes. If that's the approach that you're going to take, you're never going to reach them. You can never expect them to be able to talk to you, because they really feel like you don't care about what they think or what that they endure. And that is something that I've had to work years to forgive myself for, because I see the damage that I played on my kids, partly because of my upbringing. I had a
Yes.
father who was very strict, a father who, didn't allow me to do nothing. And so I turned around and kept my kids, try to lock them up, keep them safe. No, you can't stay the night. No, and they're like, just because this happened here doesn't mean it's going to happen there. And so I was up against that. And and then I started to see that they were dressing funny, and their identity was attached to the way that they were dressing. And like, and I was getting very frustrated with that. And then it took a special lady from church to tell me, because I was just so angry that one of my daughters showed up and just looked like a guy, right? And she says to me, I says, I can't believe it. You know what I mean? She looks like a boy, And it was her precious, sweet voice. And this was at a birthday party, Micah's birthday party. And she says, "Do you love her?" I said, "Of course I love her. I just don't understand it." You know what she went through? Yes, of course. Of course I know. Yes, I guess. And she goes, "Then allow God to heal her." Because she was still going through the healing process. And kids don't
Mhm.
kids don't they don't get healed like you and I. They have
Mhm.
to go through all of this unnecessary hurdles, and put themselves in dangerous situations, and all of this, in order for them to finally get it when they get into adulthood. Duh, that was like me. It's like everybody else, you know?
Their developmental process was interrupted as a child.
Yes.
So they were faced with some adult like
Yes.
experiences that doesn't make sense in child development, and trying to navigate through that there. And then sometimes they want to hide.
Hmm.
So like look a certain way, nobody really can see me.
But when I think about it, Joanne, I was the same way.
See?
I dressed like a boy.
Mm-hmm.
I
To
was
hide.
with the Jordans, I was with the caps, I was with the jerseys, I was with all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny how judgmental we are as parents, because we see ourselves in our kids,
Yep.
and we don't always recognize that.
Mm-hmm.
We just know that it's familiar and we don't like it. And so I think everybody needs therapy. When you
It
think
doesn't hurt.
you need therapy, you need therapy, you need therapy, you need therapy. Like, I couldn't be this woke right now if I didn't know. Now, I'm not saying I don't make mistakes, Because
Oh, you're
sometimes even with
human.
my little child, you know what, I have to go back to him like, mommy was wrong. And even though he's loving and he forgives me, and no, I have to know, I have to let him know I was wrong. And that was no way to respond to you. That was no way, to react to that. Like all you did was ask me a question. And, I'm I'm learning to ease up on myself, but I'm also learning to make sure that I'm taking accountability because that's important. If my
Yeah.
kids don't see what accountability looks like, I'm having to uh, make sure that I sit down and talk with them and say, "Hey, I was wrong." I don't like saying when I'm wrong, but I mean, so such as everybody. But you have to do it. They have to be able to see that it's okay to make a mistake.
Yes.
So all right, man, we can go on and on. And I know we wanted to talk about the grooming process. Is there anything you want to add to the grooming process, either as it pertains to me or just in general for educational purposes?
I like to say, even for the youngest person to the oldest, if it doesn't feel right in your gut,
Hmm,
believe your gut.
that's right.
It could be something simple. And I have stories for life because I've been doing this for so long. Buying special gifts outside of birthdays and Christmas,
No,
grooming, um,
good. That's a good
making
one.
one child feel more special than the other,
Mm-hmm.
grooming, um, spending a lot of time and reading and sitting close and movie time.
Mm-hmm.
So again, if it doesn't, because in your mind you think, well, it's not all we're doing is watching TV, but we put a blanket over us because it's a little cold.
Mm-hmm.
Grooming. So
Mm-hmm.
again, if it does not feel right, because this can go on for, and like I said, a very long time, and it doesn't matter if they're a stranger
Mm-hmm.
or someone you're more familiar with, because usually, believe it or not, the pedophile is someone you know,
Always.
someone in your family, someone that has a lot of personal information. It is not the stranger.
Whew.
So, stranger danger, I know kids are taught, but these are not strangers.
Mm-mm.
These are the grandfathers, the
Mm-hmm.
cousins, the mom's boyfriend that you're now going to call daddy, but he's not really your dad. These
Mm-hmm.
are those people.
Mm.
And again, they're very patient. So grooming can go on for an extremely long time.
Yes,
I just say if it doesn't feel right in your gut, believe your gut.
that's right.
And don't bring these people into your home, into your family, around your children that you really don't know.
Yeah,
Even if you fellowship together,
right.
uh,
That's
don't
not
do it.
knowing them.
No,
That's not knowing them.
no, no. But I am so happy that you have done the work and that you continue to do the work and that you do formats like such
Mm-hmm.
to reach out to other individuals. So many people, names came to me as we were talking
Mm-hmm.
that I need to get this video to,
Mm.
because they are stuck where they are in, whether in treatment or life, because they
Yeah,
have not addressed certain issues.
yeah.
So again, I thank you
Thanks.
for um, open up this space yourself, your family to share.
Thank you. I couldn't have done it any other way. That this is something that the Lord impressed upon me, and I normally just celebrate it, have survivors come on, and we just talk about having an authentic conversation because I didn't give you any questions, right? I
No.
just told her, and I know you wanted to be structured, but no, it was just about me, and I gave you some somewhere of the gray area I wanted to touch base on, but we covered way more than my expectation, and so thank you for coming on. Thank you for just sharing and having this opportunity to share with others a look of in my life and how detrimental and important you were to me. How it's important to have, therapy, mentorship, support groups. Sometimes you need all of those things to be able to function.
Yeah.
You need that support. I know people, I know I needed the extra support. God knew what I needed. He knew
Right.
I needed my church behind me. He knew I needed the ministers behind me, the pastor behind me. He knew that I needed my co-workers at the church. And I was like, I figured the whole world knows at this point. And
Right.
then as I'm getting better and as I'm getting older and as I'm winning in strides of everything that I was hurdling. Whoo, I just thank God that I'm nowhere where I was, and I'm thankful that I'm getting ready to go further wherever He leads me, wherever He wants me to go. That's what I'm gonna do. And so like I said, I thank you. I thank Tyler Perry for the business aspect of poetry. Like, you don't understand how you just connected me to all these great people that I'm now meeting, that I'm now singing behind, and y- you know, uh, I I just can't thank you enough that Nettie Long Poetry was birthed by my therapist who helped me connect the dots in my life. And so get you one of these. Get
Thank
you
you.
one of these. Get you one of these. Where can people, book you if I know you're doing adult therapy now. If you take these next few minutes and share how people can reach you,
Yes.
I think it's
Of
important
course.
because she's the bomb.com, y'all.
By Original Design LLC.com, all together,
Mm-hmm.
or 856-812-4116. We can do a consultation. See, I may not be the right person, and maybe I can connect you to someone that is more compatible, but
Mm-hmm.
do it for you.
Yes.
Again, I'm Joanne Turner by Original Designs LLC.com at 856-812-4116.
And Joanne, I did choose me. Yep, I chose me.
Wonderful.
And then, in that, there were so many things added in my life because I chose me.
Yes.
Whew! All
And
right.
because you chose you, your tribes that are coming behind you, your children, your grandchildren, your neighbors, you didn't just save you saved the multitude.
Amen.
Keep doing
Amen.
it.
And what poetry also did for me was open and shed some light to some other sexual abuse that was happening in one of my family, and we were able to get her the help, the support,
Beautiful.
um and also uh get that person that did the abuse um help as well. And
Yes.
so you know how do I do that? The
Yeah.
grace that God showed me, I was able to do that. Um, and
And
so
I
even
still work
though,
with pedophiles.
yeah,
I still do that work.
wow, and that's amazing
But
because they
I
need
should
help
say
too.
juvenile, not adults.
Hmm.
Juvenile, because I feel that they can learn differently. And
Yes,
a lot of times they also were sexually assaulted.
exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So I believe that was in return that was his issue, and I hope that he got we no longer talk to them and all that other stuff, but it had to come out. But had I not experienced what your therapy was able to help me, I wouldn't have been able to write such a piece that compelled, my family member to share what had happened to
Yeah.
her. And
Yeah.
so I owe that to some good behind therapy. So, all right, I have held you long enough. Thank you for this hour and 10 minutes that you gave me. And it will not be forgotten. And I do pray and hope that it helps anybody that's out there listening. Bye for now. Get you one of these. I'm gonna end it and we can talk for a second.